Okay, so this is the Bhagavad Gita. We are on, what did you say, chapter 6, Shloka 19. And we'll start with the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Yatha dipo nivatashto Ningate sopama smrita yogino yatha chitasya yunjato yogam atmanam. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on transcendental self. A truly Krishna conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, is in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord. It's as steady as a lamp in a windless place. Text 20 to 23. Yatro parmate chitam nirudam yoga sevaya. Yatra chaivat manat manam pasyan atmani tusyati. Shukam atyantikam yat tad buddhi grayam atridrinam. Veti yatra na kaivayam shtitas kalati tatvata. Yam labdva kaparam labam manyate nadikam tata. Yasmin shtito na dukena gurunapi vichailayate. Tam vidyad dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samjinatam. The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material conduct. By practice of yoga, one becomes gradually detached from material concepts. This is the primary characteristic of the yoga principle. And after this, one becomes situated in trance or samadhi, which means that the yogi realizes the supersoul through transcendental mind and intelligence, without any of the misgivings of identifying with the self with the super self. Yoga practice is more or less based on the principles of the Patanjali system. Some unauthorized commentators try to identify the individual soul with the super soul, and the monists think this to be liberation, but they do not understand the real purpose of the Patanjali yoga system. There is an acceptance of transcendental pleasure in the Patanjali system, but the monists do not accept this transcendental pleasure out of fear of jeopardizing the theory of oneness. The duality of knowledge and knower is not accepted by the non-dualist. But in this verse, transcendental pleasure realized through transcendental senses is accepted. And this is corroborated by Patanjali Muni, the famous exponent of the yoga system. The great sage declares in his Yoga Sutras, Purishtara Sunyanam Gunanam Pratiprashava Kaivalyam Svarupa Pratishta Va Chitti Saktir Iti. This Chitti Sakti, or internal potency, is transcendental. Parushartha means material religiosity, economic development, sense gratification. At the end, the attempt to become one with the Supreme. This oneness with the Supreme is called Kaivalyam by the monist. But according to Patanjali, I don't know where that was going up to now. According to Patanjali, this Kaivalyam is an internal or transcendental potency by which the living entity becomes aware of his constitutional position. In the words of Lord Chaitanya, the state of affairs is called Cheto Darpana Marjanam, or clearance of the impure mirror of the mind. This clearance is actually liberation, or Bhava Mahadavani Nirvapanam. The theory of nirvana, also preliminary, corresponds with this principle. In the Bhagavatam, this is called Svarupena Vyavastiti. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms the situation in this verse. After nirvana or material cessation, there is the manifestation of spiritual activities or devotional service of the Lord, known as Krishna consciousness. In the words of the Bhagavatam, Svaripena Vayasviti, this is the real life of the living entity. Maya or illusion is the condition of spiritual life contaminated by material infection. Liberation from this material infection does not mean destruction of the original eternal position of the living entity. Patanjali also accepts this by his words, Kavalyam Svarupa Pratishta Vachiti Saktir Iti. This Chitti Sakti, or transcendental pleasure, is real life. This is confirmed by the Vedanta Sutras as Anandamayo Vyasat. This natural transcendental pleasure is the ultimate goal of yoga, and is so Anandamaya is the kosha or sheath that is closest to the Atman or center of self, which is sometimes called our bliss body. So he's calling it transcendental pleasure. Is the ultimate goal of yoga and is easily achieved by execution of devotional service or bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga will be vividly described in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the yoga system as described in this chapter, there are two kinds of samadhi called samprajnata samadhi and asamprajnata samadhi. When one becomes situated in the transcendental position by various philosophical researchers, it is called samprajnata samadhi. In the asamprajnata samadhi, there is no longer any connection with the mundane pleasure, for one is then transcendental to all sorts of happiness derived from the senses. That's the one without the seed. When the yogi is once situated in that transcendental position, he's never shaken from it. Unless the yogi is able to reach this position, he's unsuccessful. Today's so-called yoga practice, which involves various sense pleasures, is contradictory. A yogi indulging in sex and intoxication is a mockery. Even those yogis who are attracted by the siddhis, perfections, in the process of yoga are not perfectly situated. If the yogis are attracted by the byproducts of yoga, then they cannot attain the stage of perfection as is stated in this verse, right? You have to really have non-attachment to be able to get to this space, right? Because if you're attached to anything, you won't be able to drop in deep enough. The persons therefore indulging in the make-show practice of gymnastic feats or siddhis should know that the aim of yoga is lost in that way. Siddhis are psychic powers. The best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness, which is not baffling. A Krishna conscious person is so happy in his occupation that he does not aspire after any other happiness. There are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy, of practicing Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, but there's no such problem in executing Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. As long as the material body exists, one has to meet the demands of the material body, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. But a person who is in pure Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness does not arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life, making best use of a bad bargain, and enjoys transcendental happiness in Krishna consciousness. He is callous toward incidental occurrences such as accidents, disease, scarcity, and even death of a most dear relative, but he is always alert to execute his duties in Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakta is always looking at everything as beneficial. That's like as a way to reconnect to Krishna. So he's calling it callous, but I would say it's more of like a non-attachment thing that arises because they feel so full up by being so connected to that bliss body. So accidents never deviate him from his duty, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Agama payino nityastams tikshava bharata. He endures all such incidental occurrences because he knows that they come and go and do not affect his duties. In this way, he achieves the highest perfection in yoga practice. Sa niskayena yoktavyo yago nirvana chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamams tyaktva sarvan aseseta. Mana Savirandriya Gramam Viniyamya Samantata. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with the undeviating determination of faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego and thus control all senses on all sides by the mind. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure at the success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner. Regarding Bhakti Yoga, Rupa Goswami says, Utashahan Niskayad Daryat Tat Karma Paravartanat Sangha Tyagat Satareta Satir Bhakti Prashyati. The process of bhakti yoga can be executed successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, determination by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees, and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. As for determination, one should follow the example by the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate towards his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job, but if anybody follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. Sanha Saner Uparmed Budya Driti Gritaya Atma Samstamana Kritva Na Kinchid Api Chintayit. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. The mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation of the senses should be situated in trance or samadhi. At that time, there is no longer any danger of becoming engaged in the material conception of life. In other words, although one is involved with matter, as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. Yato nat yato niskalate manas kankalam astriyam tatas tato niyam yati atmani eva vashyam natyet. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called a Goswami or a Swami, and one who is controlled by the mind is called Godasa or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows that the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Hirikshetra, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Prashanta manasyam hyanam, yoginam sukham uttamam, upati santa rajasam, brahma bhutam akalasam. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest happiness. By virtue of his identity with Brahman, he is liberated. His mind is peaceful, his passions are quieted, and he is freed from sin. Brahma Bhuta is the state of being free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. Mad Bhaktiam Labate Param. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the Absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai mana Krishna padarvaniyo. To be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Krishna consciousness, is to be factually liberated from the mode of passion or rajas, and all material contamination. Well, so something my teacher would always say is we have this self-guidance, right? There's karma, but there's also this will of the self, and your will gets stronger the more sattvic that your body mind is. Or what is the word I'm looking for? What is the phrase of like your self will? Free will, that's what I'm trying to say. So your free will gets stronger the more sattvic the body and mind become. You mentioned earlier that those who are like constantly intoxicated are like fake. They're just fake yogis. If they're trying to say that they're yogis, it's not true. And the reason is because their body minds become so tamasic or rajasic that they lose that free will. So they don't gain mastery over the mind. Like he's using the word control. I like to use the word mastery. And they are more at will to whatever material leaning comes into their purview. So if we want to get free, like he's saying this, we have to get liberated from the mode of passion, from that rajas, and material contamination, which would be maya or illusion. And that gets very heavy, very strong if we allow ourselves to be too involved in tamas and rajas. Studying the self, being freed from all material contamination, the yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the supreme consciousness. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position and relationship to the supreme. Sorry. The individual soul is part and parcel of the supreme and his position to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the supreme is called Brahma Samparsha. His text 29. Sarva Bhitastam Atmanam Sarva Bhutani Katmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Sama Darshana. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. A Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna as supreme, situated in everyone's heart as supersoul, Paramatma. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Pradyase Vijunya Ristati. The Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of the Brahmana. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahmana. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the supersoul. One who is not factually in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. A Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and non-believer. In the Smriti, this is confirmed as follows. Smriti means remembering. Atat cha Machvad Atma Hai Parmo Hari. The Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the Supersoul is always in every living being. Outwardly, also, every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord. As will be explained in the 7th chapter, the Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual or superior and the material or inferior. The living entity, although part of his superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living being is situated in him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations according to the result of fruitive work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. While in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and while in spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness. Yomam pashyati sarvtra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham no pranashyami sache ma na prashyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. A person of Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, But in each and every instance, he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is the manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is a basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to the material liberation. It is the stage beyond self-realization at which the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full and loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity attains his immortality, nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of the sight of the devotee. To merge in Krishna is spiritual annihilation. A devotee takes no such risk. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita, Premanaja Trivita Bhakti Vilochenana. Santa Sadaiva Hrishedu Vilokyanti. Yam Shyama Sundaram Achintya Guna Svarupam. Govindam Adi Purusham Tam Aham Bhajyami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Samyu Sundara, situated within the heart of the devotee. At this stage, Lord Krishna never appears from the sight of the devotee, or disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. So that's text. I'll stop at text 31. Thoughts?
It's I don't know if I'm okay, but you go back to text 24, there's a story of the bird, the sparrow, who laid her eggs by the sea. The sea took the eggs. The sparrow said, "Oh no, you don't," and started with great determination, because the focus of that sloka looks like it's determination. With great determination, started removing water from the ocean until she got some help and got her eggs back. But what's struck me is that isn't the sparrow's attachment to her eggs the very thing that in surrounding slokas it talks about, giving it up, and you shouldn't feel bad if there's accidents. Not you shouldn't feel bad, but the fact that there are accidents and bad things that happen in the world, the yogi can almost shrug off, because the yogi does not have attachment and understands that the primary purpose is seeing Krishna. So it struck me as ironic that this example, which to me is a real primal attachment, attachment to your young, is used to illustrate determination.
Sure, it is not a perfect illustration.
Well, it's not just that. I think for me, it spoke to and I'm going to say this, even though that's not, maybe it's not correct. I certainly isn't what the book is saying, but for me, it's an illustration of how you can't escape these kinds of material attachments. In some respects, so this book is saying, oh yes, you can, if you do the following things, and then it gives many different prescriptions. But if you are a parent, what wouldn't you do to keep your offspring safe?
Yeah, I hear you.
And that's a material attachment, I think.
I don't know. I don't know. Are we attached to the material body, or are we attached to the Atman inside the child?
I don't know, but does it make a difference? I mean, it is is it not considered a sensory pleasure to take some joy in seeing your child?
Well, I was thinking actually the same thing was popping into my mind. It's funny you're saying that when I was reading it. Because I was pretty good with all this stuff, and then I had a kid, and she's just delicious.
Mhm.
So I'll just, like this morning, I was just like laying there, cuddling her soft cheeks, giving her kisses. It's like, it was like so lovely. And, I was real good with the non attachment until this kid came along. I'm very attached. So I feel you. But like, Maya Devi is very strong,
Mhm.
that material contamination. But at the end of the day, if we're like these spirit souls that are all kind of traveling in the same circle, we're redrawn together again because of the you know attachment to the it's obviously not the attachment to the material if we're coming back into life in different roles. It's the attachment of the souls to one another is something that I think about a lot, but who knows
So
what.
in Buddhism, after you die and after you free yourself from the earth, you're in the bardo, and you I mean, I don't know very much about it, but I seem to remember that you are surrounded by the souls or the spirits of the people who are sort of, they're like your bardo pod, you know. Is that it's
I read the book. I read the book of Living and Dying a
the Tibetan
long
Book of
time
Dead?
ago. I like vaguely remember what you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
something like it kind of lingers for 40 days by the body, and then it like goes and hangs out with the other disembodied souls, and then everybody's waiting to it depends on like if you're liberated, like he's talking about nirvana in here. If you're liberated and you like reabsorb, then you go away. But if you come back, then you all decide when to reincarnate again or something. I might be like completely butchering this
I don't know. I just started
at all.
reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And I'm not sure I'm reading a good translation. I might be reading one of those, Amanda, you talked about, the Brits who went into India and decided that they were going to
uh
translate things. And so, of course, it's they get it all wrong a lot of the time because it's, different language, different culture, et cetera, and
right.
no root knowledge. So I have to find a good translation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But
You gotta
yeah,
find a Tibetan teacher or someone to guide you through it, I think.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. But anyway, that's what came to mind when I was reading 24. I thought, but wait.
So yeah, it's like not a perfect example, but I think what they're trying to illustrate is something that I've heard of in different parts of the Vedic tradition, which is like if you take one step towards Krishna, Krishna takes 1,000 steps towards you, or something like that. So I think what this was trying to illustrate, I don't know, if maybe like the eggs represent trying to connect to the divine, to doing this bhakti path. They were trying to illustrate, at least that's what I'm thinking, but who knows? This is only my interpretation. That they were trying to illustrate that if you have a determination towards trying to reach this bhakti and this divine love, then you're going to get divinely helped. Even though it's like a very tedious, exhausting, and hard, it's not the easy path to take this path, but you will be assisted in your journey. You won't be alone in it, I think was the point it was trying to make. But I do hear what you're saying about like material contamination. It's strong. And she wanted those little baby eggs.
I feel Amanda had shared months ago. She was talking about Isabella, and I think we were talking about attachment, and you said that I forget what you said. No, she's not that. She's Isfara, and it totally made sense to me. Like that the children or people are not like a material thing necessarily to be attached to, especially the bond between a mother and a child. And like, unless it's a woman writing a Bhagavad Gita, like, I don't think a man can describe the bond between a mother and their child. So I hear what you're saying, Sue, but also like I think a mother would just do like if
Maybe that's why he gave an imperfect example. Yeah.
yeah, like he should have just said like he's just missing one sentence that just says like Guru the sparrow just gave it up to the Lord wishing like there's a sentence missing here that I feel like would have just summed it up a little bit better. But if the sparrow was looking for like her Coach sunglasses that the waves ate, I don't think Garuda would have come and saved the sunglasses. But because the mother was so, I just have to believe that the sparrow was just giving everything up to the universal energy to get her eggs back. And I think of the,
Wasn't she was there pecking at the ocean, trying to, little.
The determination is the, yeah, I think he was
I
trying to
don't
make a
think we're
point of
giving up
determination.
anything.
no, I
This
know,
isn't
but like,
something that's in the Gita, this is like his own, Prabhupada's own addition as
Yeah.
a translation.
if the what I'm saying is if the sparrow was that determined to get back something like a sunglasses or a pail or a shovel from the ocean, I
What
don't
is it with
think,
these sunglasses?
because I lost sunglasses in the ocean before and they're lost in there.
Been there, done that.
I always forget to take my sunglasses off when I go in the ocean and I go underwater and they
And then
always
they're gone.
they
Yeah.
always get eaten. But whatever, I don't think that Garuda would have come. And also, I don't know if everyone knows this, but Garuda is eagle pose.
Yeah.
Ah,
So I think I love when things tie together like that because
Yeah.
it always does in yoga.
Yeah. You're making me think of something else that I've been taught in the Bhakti tradition, that the love of a parent for their child is something that models the love that we can feel for Krishna. And sometimes like it for people who don't go down the path of parenthood, it can be the way that you model love towards your guru. Like the guru teacher relationship is meant to create the foundation where in the material world we can kind of practice that kind of devotion. I think that's why in so many cases the guru pedestal can become very dangerous. Like in the Vedic tradition, we've gone through this a million times, right? There are rules of whether or not you qualify to be guru, and because it's such a sensitive position to be in, right? Like you're meant to be in this completely vulnerable state of love and devotion, and the idea is that it's serving you and that it's teaching you this selfless love. And sometimes and often when you have your children, they teach you that. So yeah, like the grihastha stage is meant to be spiritualized. The grihastha stage is like the stage of the householder, if you decide to take part in that, like of having your children and keeping a family and having a home and all that stuff. It's meant to be spiritualized, in that it's meant to represent, like when he says do devotional service to the Lord, like doing devotional service in certain texts I've read, doing devotional service, being in devotion, being in selfless service to your children and your spouse and your family members is like being in service to Krishna, because Krishna lives in the heart of every being. If that makes any sense. I don't know if that's like pulling the bird example a little closer to like a better example. I
Just know when you shared that Isabella thing, I had an aha moment here, because I know it's like crazy psycho, but like Kramer is my child and he's a dog. But the love
We just said that in the book.
what?
Right? We said something about the dog in the book.
Yeah.
Well, I just know like Kramer has taught me how to love, and like that experience I imagine is what like a mother and a child have together, and it's different than like I get that we get attached to humans in unhealthy ways too, but I have to argue that being attached to a human is not the same as being attached to like your favorite pair of jeans. Like it just is a different material attachment.
Well, maybe what Amanda said is the difference, which is that you don't really have an attachment to your Coach sunglasses spirit, because sunglasses don't have spirit, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And whereas attachment to the pet you've lived with for so many years, or to a child, or a grown child, or any other human being that you're close to, you're attached to their spirit. Sometimes that's why it's painful, because you're concerned because their spirit is suffering, and then your spirit starts suffering.
But I think until you learn that, you do think you're truly attached to the other things. Because some people just aren't aware of that love, because they like whatever, but until they're taught it, they are physically, mentally, emotionally attached to mental objects. And that's why they have to keep shopping. And oh my God, there's this commercial I have to find that is basically just like, clean out all the clutter in your house, but here, fill it with this new clutter because you're attached to it. It's like spring cleaning, because you need these things. And it's like, no, we don't. We don't need any of this stuff. But until you know how to just love the beings or yourself as you are, I don't know.
It's unconditional. And the problem with loving something material is it's all conditioned. It's all conditional, right? So like you can love, the only thing that we truly can love unconditionally would be what is spirit, the individual spirit, and then the Paramatma. So this is like, I know like people tell me their crazy stuff all the time. Like I'm going to tell you my crazy stuff now. So when I started getting I was, introduced to yoga at a very young age. But it was definitely in college that I started getting around 25, I was like very intensely into all the yoga stuff. And that's when I could start to feel the presence of Issa's soul following me around. And she was just as pushy then as she is now, urging to be born, urging all the time. Like she would start chattering and when I was meditating. I felt this, like she was attached, like she was following me around. And when I got pregnant, I remember like I already knew her name. I had known her name. I didn't get pregnant until my 30s. I already knew her name. I already knew who she was when I was like 25. She showed up. So like we, went for the 20 week sonogram, and like I already knew she was gonna be a girl. I already knew everything about it. Was just strange. It was very strange. And I already told my husband, and he kind of didn't believe me until we were sitting there. She's like, do you want to know the set? I'm like, it's going to be a girl. And she's like, yeah, it's a girl. And my husband kind of like got a little creeped, and like I told him everything about her and her personality. And, she's like, that's how she is. It's just like, I just feel like our souls are very attached to each other and we want to come back. We were something else in a past life, I think, but like we've changed roles now. And it's just funny. I think, I don't know, there's like this inherent part of you that's got to feel that about the people that are in your life, that like your souls are together. You have to feel that about your husband, Sue, the way you talk about him.
I do.
Just can't imagine you don't feel attached to a soul.
He doesn't feel the same. He's attached, all right. And in fact, I think he's either a really fine actor or he's really very attached. And but early on, when you see these Hallmark type things where we were meant for each other, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say that he thought that was basically BS, that there are people in the world that you are drawn to, and there is not one and only one significant other for you. There are several potentialities out there, which is probably the case. And a part of the being drawn to and the attachment is just the ongoing interacting, because you keep on building these threads between each other, that are, that end up being heavy, strong ropes,
Yeah.
What you're describing about Isabella, I believe, I didn't have that with my children, but
it was like a creepy thing, It was like a weird, creepy thing that I don't think a lot of people get. Maybe they're not aware, or I don't know. It wasn't until like I started getting into the yoga practices, which a lot of students say to me, they'll be like, I started meditating and now like I don't know, I'm getting these weird flashes, like all this weird it was just one of the creepy things that started.
Oh,
It
I
was,
think that
yeah.
meditation is it. I believe you, and I can understand why it felt so creepy, especially when you're so young. That kind of thing has to feel like what?
It was
But I
bewildering,
also
yeah.
agree with what you experienced and with what other people experience, which is that when you start meditating, which we should probably get to at one of these.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but when you start meditating, those doors start opening up, and they and I to me it's absolutely amazing. And I made it a part of my science fiction book.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to read it.
I can't wait to finish it. It's got to be finished by July 30th. So
Okay, good luck. Good
yeah,
luck with that. That's quite
yeah.
a, yeah, that's tough.
Anyway,
So something you said about like all the, and then we'll obviously get into meditation, but something you said about like how your husband says that he feels like, oh, it's not just one person you're meant to be with. Like that's very much in this tradition. It says a soulmate doesn't necessarily mean they're coming in forever and staying with you forever. A soulmate means like someone you have those ropes with, that they're like trying to help open you to yourself, to find that divinity again, and that like unconditional awareness of and love, just beingness, being in love. And some one of my friends always says a reason, a season, a lifetime. Like some people come in for a reason and then they go away. So maybe you might have just met them for 3 minutes and they changed you, something inside of you. They woke you up to yourself. Some people come for a whole season of your life and then they go away. And then some people come for a lifetime. It doesn't make them any less of soulmates.
mhm.
I love that idea.
Yeah, yeah. So do I.
I have
Okay.
I have a question about meditating.
Sure.
So I'm finding it to become addicting. Like if I don't do it, I really miss it, and that I need to do it daily now that I've started it. And then I'm like, is that a bad thing to be addicted to meditation?
No, we have the nature of being addicted to things as human beings. That's what my teacher says. You're going to be addicted to things anyway, so just maybe choose healthy things to be addicted to. So it's not bad.
Okay.
Like if you get attached to if you get so attached that it's like causing you suffering, then it's a material attachment, then it's a problem. But
Well,
if
I
you're like picking
y-
at the ocean, I think that was like the point of that,
hmm.
then it's
Yeah,
okay.
no, like I definitely feel the difference in my day if I don't get a good meditation in.
Yeah, that's totally normal.
Okay.
All right, so pranayam.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to sign off because I'm going to go sit on the porch and do this. But I
Okay,
want to
have a
wish
lovely day.
you again.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Sue.
Take care, Dominica. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye, Izzy. Bye, Izzy.
She's off with the babysitter. All right, so let's take the right hand thumb and close off the right nostril. Inhale through the left nostril. Close off both and exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close off both, exhale through the left. And you can continue like that for a few cycles. I read last night that this purifies all 72,000 nadis for energetic rivers. I thought, well, that's nice that we've been doing this for So we'll finish out the left side. And we'll go for bellows breath. So there's the emphasis of the inhale and exhale at the diaphragm. We'll go for 30. So you'll sit up nice and tall. Inhale all the way. Exhale all the way up. Inhale halfway. Inhale away. Retain the breath. Exhale all the way up. Inhale halfway. We'll go for 30. Inhale all the way. Exhale all the way out. Inhale and exhale. So you can close your ears with your thumbs and close off your eyes with your peace fingers, and we'll go for 3 rounds of bumblebee breath. So you'll hum out of your nose, keeping the mouth shut. When you're done, you'll just start right again. You can move into your meditation. Bring your hands to prayer. Namaste.
Namaste.
Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.